the worst Texas A&M football podcast of all time.
Yeah.
All time. In fact, we're going into this with one goal in mind, and that is to make sure that nobody ever listens ever again. And why is that,
Good.
Casey? Why is that?
Because you people make us not want to do the show. We don't even want to talk about Texas A&M football anymore because of you. Because
We don't.
you don't have the stomach for this season and what's about to unfold in front of us. And that is very apparent. Yeah.
That is very apparent. It's been a few weeks since we did do a show and talk football, and a lot has happened. Look, that's just the way it goes. We got obligations. We got obligations, man. And it's tough to get into the same time slot and actually do this.
Yeah.
But here we are, and
This was
therefore
a lot more fun when I didn't have kids.
We're going to go back in time. We're going to rewind a couple of weeks because there was a game that kicked off an epic Texas Aggie meltdown, and that was the trip to South Beach, to Miami, against the Hurricanes, and A&M came up short, and people lost their minds, and said so many dumb things, so many dumb things. And I honestly don't even know where to start, other than it's not nearly as bad as everybody wanted it to be.
Right. It's not, but we should acknowledge that look, I think A&M fans have every right to be sitting around saying, hey, it's year 6. Right. And that's really, I think what's boiling over is that it's year 6. You think you're more talented than they are. On paper, you have more composite talent. You think that this Conner Weigman guy is legit and he's the guy. And it's like, look, it's year 6. If we want to get where we want to go, this is the kind of game where you need to go put up or shut up. And I think that was a fair expectation going into the game. I think I had similar feeling going into the game, but it just didn't happen. Does that mean that it's time to blow it all up? Time will tell. And let's also acknowledge that it was a very emotional day, not just because A&M lost, but because then you had to turn around and watch the artist formerly known as Mullet go beat Alabama in Tuscaloosa and watch all of the burnt orange shirts that have been in storage for the last 9 years get pulled out and dusted off and paraded around on Sunday. And it just, people are upset, and I get it. And my only message at the time, I kind of couldn't believe it because I'm just sitting there going, we'll never, ever learn to just let the season play out. Like that was week 2. And look, it could be a disaster. I don't know, but we're not going to know for a while. So everybody just chill the F out, let it play out. Like it's like it's week 2 and it's just, well, Texas is going to the playoff, obviously, because they're going to run through the Big 12 and they beat Alabama and we're going to go 5-7 again. And look, man, there are stumbling blocks in front of Texas. Ultimately, the SEC is still wide open for A&M, and you need to just, like you said in our last show, this is 12 little maroon Christmas presents under the tree that you get to unwrap, and let's not waste any of them by throwing a fit in week 2.
Yeah, and we're past week 4, right?
Yeah.
So don't waste, don't get yourself spun up into such a frenzy that you actually can't enjoy college football. And I think the other part for me that is so frustrating is that when people get angry and they see something happen, they start to fall back on old narratives. They start to fall back on the things that they're really comfortable being angry about. And they actually miss what actually happens in a football game. And they miss the most important parts of it. And if you back all the way up to a year ago, um, we all survived, or we all made it through the disaster at the beginning of the season with App State. And you and I sat there after that game, and even though most of the Aggie fandom was trying to think of, well, how do we put this thing back together and salvage something out of this, and and lamenting the loss, but still expecting to win almost every game that was in front of them. And you and I were sitting here going, no, no, because that thing, as it was constructed against App State, was in real trouble. And I think you and I even said at the time, we said, man, I don't see 6 wins on this schedule. I don't see it. Now, that started to change when it was announced that Max Johnson was going to take over at quarterback, because we thought, okay, well, with what's happening in the offensive line and how green they are and how inexperienced they are and how poorly they were playing, we didn't see a future at all with Haynes King. We thought, man, he's in the worst possible situation. A guy like Max Johnson puts you in a position to win, doesn't guarantee you're going to win, but we saw hope in that. And even coming out of Miami, which I predicted we would lose, he was able to get them to a win with, I think, 17 points, not a lot, right? Mm-hmm. And then go into that next game, if I recall right, Mississippi State, and played okay, right? Started to dig them out and then got hurt, right? So things just started to snowball from there. But the whole time, I felt like you and I were looking at the team for what it was in the moment. Like, that team was not capable of having a winning record. And we saw things get better, and we saw hope established for the future. And that's why we came into this season expecting a much better team, a team that could compete for the SEC West title, a team that was going to be much more physical against the run, a team that could run and would be functional up front, that had a ton of experience coming back, and had a quarterback that puts them in a big-time position to win tough ball games. And then they go to Miami, and it doesn't work out. But those things that we went into the season expecting to see, despite the loss, we still saw them.
Right.
And so when you come out of a game like that, you didn't win. We can get to why that is. But I actually felt better about my football team coming out of that game than I might have even felt going into it, because the things that I needed to see for them to be successful, I saw. The things that I didn't think I would see was my skill position players spitting the bit at critical times in the game. Guys that you can normally rely on to be big-time players fumbling the ball, falling down on a route, not grinding out a yard on 3rd and short, and just getting a first down, trying to turn a small play into a big play and completely missing it, entirely. And that happened repeatedly. But I saw my guys on the offensive line playing physical against an extremely aggressive defense. They weren't perfect. Not perfect. I saw my defense, schematics aside, I saw that front 4 and front 3.
4. Yeah.
Most of the time 4. Most of the time 4. And just as many times with 5 or 6 than with 3. Okay. But I saw them go up against a very physical football team and still create some pressure. Did they get the sacks? No. But they did create pressure. What didn't happen was on the back end and a whole lot of other things. But anyway, that's Miami. Right? Miami, I didn't feel horrible coming out of that game. I actually felt better. Like, man, if this team grows, it's going to be a 2020-like team. I'm not saying it's going to repeat what they did, but it has that potential. And so, therefore, here we go. ULM happened, but then Auburn happened.
Right.
Now let's talk about Saturday. What did you see on Saturday?
Well, yeah, I mean, you mentioned 2020. I think it's funny. You and I were talking before the game, and I was like, I was feeling good as the week went on, right? And I even said, it makes me nervous to feel this way, but I'm starting to get like Arkansas 2012 kind of vibes, where like I was like, okay, you did good, kind of at the start of the season. You're seeing some flashing from this quarterback. He runs around a lot. Um, he put up a bunch of numbers against SMU, and it's like, okay, whatever. And then, but it's like now you got to play more SEC football. This is big boy. This is the big boy league, right? This is your first year in it, and Johnny absolutely torched Arkansas, and it was a bit of a coming out party on the national stage for him, right? And I don't know. I think I was trying to will it into existence, and you said, like, I'm actually getting more of a 2020 kind of feel with this team, and you were right. I think that game had a lot of that feel to it, just in terms of, again, as that season went on, the offensive line play gelled just incrementally every week, and I think we did see incremental improvement this week. Um, and then throughout the Auburn game, we saw incremental improvement, and we saw a lot of those 2020 esque things where you could tell we were just wearing on that team, like they were just getting tired. And we'll get back to Connor going down in a minute, but in that second half, the running game really started to just get bigger and bigger chunks until, we got that big running play that really iced the game. We got that a few times in 2020 in the fourth quarter, because we didn't abandon that running game and we just kept grinding on them. And we did the same thing, and it finally popped and it put the game away. And that's why I say you guys don't have the stomach for it, because you didn't really have the stomach for it in 2020, and then 8-4 or whatever, and then 5-7 happened, and you really don't have the stomach for it now because your expectations are sky high, and that never bothers me that much. But they are what they are, and you do not have the stomach for another season like that, where this team, throughout the whole game, you feel like you should be up another touchdown or two, and it's not materializing, and then you just grind on them until it finally pops. And that's what that game felt like. And especially now with Connor out, if we're gonna win 10 games or something this season, in the regular season, there's going to be several more of those games. And
I think you're right. Now, I think one thing that could be different, and I thought it was going to be different early on against Auburn, is Conner Weigman does make a tremendous amount of difference.
Mm-hmm.
And in a way that even Kellen Mond was not able to do as a junior. And, those games were grind them out games for sort of out of necessity. And I think the problem is that with Connor, they're not a necessity. At least you're, as a play caller and as a coaching staff, there's going to be times where you come out and you just do numbers and you go, well, my quarterback can beat these numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Because he's so good at the pre-snap read, and he can do what he does over the middle of the football field. And for the most part, on Saturday, that was actually correct. If you go back and watch those first several drives, he's eating them up, just like he always does.
Right,
moving the football, getting into the red zone, making it look easy, sliding out of pressure, still getting a pass off. He's doing the things that makes him special. And then all of a sudden a penalty, or maybe a tough read, okay, where you don't get a pass interference call, and then you get another penalty, and all of a sudden you're trading field goals for touchdowns, right? Like you're putting yourself in a position where you're not taking advantage of the opportunity to completely seize control of a football game. What I liked about Saturday versus Miami, because the same thing happened against Miami, the same thing. You had an opportunity to never let go of that football game from a momentum standpoint. But the problem against Miami is we're still throwing on first and second down almost every damn time. and we're putting ourselves in bad situations on third down. But against Auburn, never lost the commitment to the running game, never stopped leaning on those dudes. And so even though it's tight, right, and it's 3-0, and then it's 6-0, and then it's 6-3, and you see an opportunity to go up big, but then it gets taken away from you, and then like you're never quite breaking free. We never gave up on the running game, and we did have those. We actually had big runs early in the game, and I think people forget about that too. There were some big ones early, big time, that we just didn't necessarily cash in on. But man, look, with Max Johnson, if he's the guy, you are 100% correct. We are going to have to win games that way. We're going to have to do it. We're going to have to be extremely patient, because Max plays differently. And that's not a knock on him. He just plays the game differently.
Yeah.
Okay. So, people are going to have to, they're going to have to sit down on their couch on Saturday and nut up. Like, just flat out be ready for a 4-quarter war. And just because a play doesn't work in the first quarter doesn't mean that you don't come back and score a touchdown on it later when you've established the run. And I can give a perfect example of that. Perfect. Okay. First quarter, I think it was the second drive. Guess who does the bootleg and is about to hit a wide open tight end streaking down the sideline? It was Conner Weigman to Theo. Right? So, and a guy comes loose, gets up in the air, and knocks the pass down. It's the exact same play, slight variation in formation, but the exact same play that brother to brother scored on later in the game. And the difference in the first time and the second time was having to respect the run, was having to flat out respect the run. And that linebacker stayed home. He didn't just fly up the field on the boot, right? So be patient. Be patient. You're going to have to be every game. Alabama's the kind of team, you saw what they did to Ole Miss on Saturday. They may be figuring out how to play with their quarterback.
With what they got,
well.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so that's going to be a bloodbath.
Yeah, that's going to be a war. You saw them really, I think, starting to figure out kind of what their identity needs to be this year as a team. And that is, a little bit more vintage, like 2013, 2014 Alabama, where we're just going to out-physical you. And they were able to out-physical Ole Miss. And they're going to come in here trying to out-physical us. Yeah, you mentioned Max being the guy that definitely, if he has to play for a few weeks, leading us to a more 2020-esque kind of season frustration. Max is going to be more aggressive in the deep game than Kellen Mond was, but he's not going to be as consistent in the intermediate game as Kellen Mond was. So, I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
Max Johnson is. Go ahead. Keep rolling.
I hate to say it, but I don't have that high hopes for Max Johnson. I know I might be in the minority among A&M fans, but I mean, when I'm looking at this schedule, like I want to win the rest of them. I want to win the West. I'm seeing a lot of, is 10-2 or 9-3 okay from this point? And no, man. If you're talking about 10-2 or 9-3, like what 2 losses remaining on the schedule are you going to feel good about? Like, I'm not going to feel good about losing to Jalen Milroe, and that's not a shot at Jalen Milroe, really. It's just he's not the kind of quarterback that we're used to seeing in the last few years from Alabama, and I want to beat that guy. And I don't want to lose to LSU again. I want to beat them at home finally. I sure as hell don't want to lose to Lane Kiffin again. And I don't want to lose to Tennessee on the road, breaking in a new quarterback. So, I definitely don't want to lose to Mississippi State, breaking in a new coaching staff. That, hell, I even forget the kid's name now. That's like a 6-year quarterback,
Will Rogers.
Will Rogers, who is, I don't want to lose to him again when he doesn't seem to be driving with the coaching staff like he has, last couple of years, so I want to win them all. And this team can win them all. That's the frustrating thing. This team can absolutely win them all. And, I'm not saying they will or that like I expect it, or I'm going to throw a fit if they don't, but I know they can, especially with Conner Weigman. And so Weigman, sorry. But so that's what I want. And I don't think we can do it with Max Johnson. So.
Yeah, I think I'm there with you, but I do think we need to talk about how you win with Max Johnson. And we hinted at it, but here's the deal. And somebody said online, thanks for listening. Max has the weapons, he just needs time. And that is true.
Very true.
Because Max is a pocket hero. He's just like his dad was. He's a big, tall, strong human being. And he can see the field, and he can see things developing further down the field, and that's where he likes to play. And he's going to stand in there. And if you think back to the game he played against A&M, Max Johnson took a beating in that game. We hit that dude, we sacked that dude so many times.
Yeah,
and he got back up, and he got back up, and he got back up, and he hit big throws. Big throws. He wasn't 30 or 40 and taking what we gave him. He was standing in there trying to hit big plays, and he hit just enough of them and got just enough of an opportunity to pick himself back up off the mat and throw the ball deep. And that's what he's going to do. And if you can run the football and you can protect, then you are going to give Max Johnson a hell of a platform to throw from. He will be successful if you can do that. If you can't do that, more often than not, these drives are going to bog down. They will more often than not. Okay, but if your defense can play lights out and keep you in a ball game, eventually Max Johnson is going to hurt you. So that's what people have to kind of strap themselves in and be prepared for starting this weekend. It's not going to be a high completion percentage in short game at West Coast. It's going to be just like what you saw. It's going to be the bootleg game. It's going to be him taking off at very opportune times and throwing the ball down the field to some big time playmakers. So
it's also going to be it's also going to be him, double clutching the ball and staying in the pocket too long and taking sacks. And that's just the whole picture you get with Max. You get the Evan Stewart throw, and you get the bad sack. So, but Max did have a good game for sure. Would have been an outrageous game if not for some god awful penalties. But that's why I said after the game, I'm like, you saw the whole Max on Saturday. So, even since last year, there's been a lot of people pumping up Max, and I just feel like they're not seeing the whole picture with him, the good and the bad. So, but hey, he's a year older, and he had a good game. We saw some of the same bad we've seen with him, but that doesn't mean, that he can't improve incrementally every week. So we'll see. Well, I mean, how long do you think we're going to see Max Johnson?
I think it's going to be a few weeks, at least. I think it's, unless I hear a report that Connor's out there taking snaps, I think definitely through Alabama. Well, but look, I mean, you could say, okay, well, Connor's not out there this week, but maybe he'll be back for Alabama. I don't think so. I don't think that's how this works. I think if it's a mild sprain, and after a couple of days, the kid can be back out there, then he'll be back out there. But if it's bad enough that he misses a full week of practice, he's probably not practicing next week. It's probably bad enough to where you're looking at beyond 2 weeks. So that's just my view of your typical ankle sprain. They say it's not high. Jimbo said it wasn't high. Okay. Well, then maybe he's out there. But anyway, I'm much more I'll tell you what would help Max a hell of a lot, and we haven't heard anything about this. And I don't know if it's just because of the family loss or what, but getting Noah Thomas back sure as hell would help. Would definitely help. So I don't know what's going on there. Hey, did you hear anything on Noah Thomas?
Yeah, since you've asked, I guess I actually haven't. I mean, but before you said that, I had it in my head that Noah would be back next week. But oh, I mean, Jimbo said, I think someone asked point blank in the press conference, and he was like, he's good to go.
Okay, good.
But I
Well,
guess
that
it's
would be a
possible he
big
was only
help.
talking injury wise, but
Yeah.
because he's still got,
Well, then
he's got family
that's big
stuff, and I
time.
understand that.
That's big time because I think Noah Thomas. Yeah, I was thinking back to this weekend versus Auburn and down in the red zone, and trying to hit Anaya Smith in the back of the end zone. A little corner post. With Noah Thomas, that's a different throw.
Yeah,
And I thought it was a good throw. I thought it was a good throw.
I did. Yeah.
And look, defender made the play he had to make to prevent that from being a touchdown, and it didn't get called. We can argue whether it should have been. I think it should have been pass interference and first and goal. But with Noah Thomas, man, that's just a whole other dimension down there. So, that comes into play. We'll see what happens. Let's talk defense.
Oh,
because again, back up all the way to Miami because that's where the conversation starts with this defense. I hope people understand something. Miami couldn't run the football, and Miami just stopped. It pretty much just stopped. And look, they didn't give up on it completely, but they knew they couldn't run the football. All right, and guess what else they did? All right, 3-man, 4-man, 5-man, 6-man. It doesn't matter. Miami was scared to death of what those guys up front could do.
Mm-hmm.
So much so that almost every passing play, they kept a tight end back and a running back in the backfield to deal with it.
Mm-hmm.
And they max protected. And then if they had the opportunity to get those guys out, they got them out. But what they relied on was the max protection to buy that guy time to hit those crossing routes and those pick plays and down the sideline, all of the things that hurt us. Okay. But people screaming that, oh, this thing is the exact same thing it's always been, and Durkin sucks, and blah, blah, blah. People completely forget what his defense was like last year. Because what it is currently is it's almost completely flipped, right? The strength of your defense was your weakness last year, which is your front seven, front six, okay, depending on what your personnel is out there. But they are so strong up front. And you really saw that on Saturday. You saw that thing, man, is going to keep getting better. That's how I think. I think they're just going to keep getting better. I think they're starting to find the right combo in the secondary.
Yeah, I think so.
And that was a question mark coming in. Who's going to step up? And I think we're starting to see some dudes step up. So
yeah, I mean, we learned that I don't care what combo we put out there. We're not going to hold up against max protect playing man coverage on the outside and a single high safety. But guess what, guys? What team in the country can do that? Like what team in the country has a secondary that's going to hold up in that coverage if you don't get pressure, right? And we didn't get pressure against max protect and whatever, but yeah, I think they're starting to figure it out. I think a lot of people's frustration is kind of a misunderstanding of what we're trying to do on defense. It probably comes across as more knowledgeable than I really am, but I saw an Auburn fan talking today about if we had so many quick throws that we missed that we just either overthrew or didn't see or whatever. And, I know enough from looking around and reading, be like, that is not an accident. And I mean, sometimes it's lucking out, but it's not lucking out. You have a team like ULM. Um, God, I even forget who played in the first game of the season, but they did it too. Um, you saw it last year with Durkin against heavy RPO teams, like teams that run a lot of RPO. Like we are doing things trying to dictate the reads to the quarterback in the quick game specifically. When you guys get mad and see Fadil Diggs standing up way too far outside, that is intentional to give the quarterback a look in the RPO game that turns him away from the quick read and tries to get him to hand the ball off, right? Um, I've seen a lot of people saying, "Oh, we blitzed a whole bunch and we did this," and that's often not true. We're not blitzing. What you're seeing is an edge defender attack the mesh specifically to dictate a certain action in the RPO game and to confuse the quarterback. So I, I don't think we blitz that much. But every time they see somebody that doesn't look like they have their hand in the dirt rushing the quarterback, we're like, oh, we blitz and a good thing happened. You know, we do a lot of, okay, we're attacking the mesh, trying to force the quarterback to hand off. Defending the RPO is a lot like defending the old like triple option, right? Like you have to be extremely gap sound. You have no choice. Like you can't outnumber them at the point of attack. It's not possible because that's what the options are designed to do, is to put you in conflict. And when you do that and you attack the mesh and you beg the quarterback to hand the ball off, you had better be gap sound or you're going to get gashed in the running game. And sometimes that happens, and it happens against teams like ULM, or New Mexico, right? And you're like, why can't we stop the run against New Mexico? And yeah, very frustrating. But a team like Auburn comes to town, and you've got a few weeks under your belt, and you're playing more gap sound. And what happens is you end up stuffing those guys, or you sack the quarterback because you've done things in the secondary that confuses him and makes him wait a couple of extra beats. And your 5-star guys that, you're like, why can't we get pressure with 5 stars? Well, they start to win because they are 5 stars, and I don't even know. God, Auburn gained a ridiculously low number of yards. I don't even remember what it was. Was it like
about 200 yards?
Yeah.
200 yards of offense. And honestly, that we had so many tackles for loss and sacks, not just sacks, but the TFL,
right?
That it offset some of what you're talking about. Sometimes they sprung a run.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They had 2 undersized backs that moved really well east-west behind a big offensive line. Okay, and they got lost and got on the edge and beat one-on-one. They were good. They were good backs.
Mm-hmm.
And they produced some really good yardage. But we won so much more often than they did up front that, we were able to keep them in check. And, okay, maybe it's 2nd and 3, 2nd and 4. All of a sudden you pick up a sack or a big tackle for loss, and now they're way behind the chains, and they couldn't recover from that.
Mm-hmm.
And, it was a great, honestly, I thought it was a great game plan. It did. It gave them so many different looks. And the other thing is, it was like, oh, well, DJ Durkin finally figured out what a blitz was. And I love the point you made. Just because you saw more than, 4 guys at a time pursuing the quarterback doesn't mean that was a blitz. And you actually saw that a ton. What you see is your linebackers recognizing what's happening at the snap very quickly and realizing, based on what's happening in the backfield, now what I was preparing for pre-snap is no longer what is happening. I am now free to go to the quarterback, right? Yeah. So, and the fact that those guys up front are so gap sound and taking care of their assignments, now we can complement that, and we know where the weaknesses are, and we can attack. And so there's a lot of that delay. If you want to call it blitz, okay, it's a delayed blitz, right? It's part of the package, right? It's not the initial assignment, but okay, my guy's not here. Let's go get it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up because that's that was a big thing with Miami, trying to read like game breakdowns and stuff by people we trust. Like there was a lot of that. RG3 made this mistake even in the Auburn game, and it probably leads some Aggies to thinking this way. And look, I know RG3 knows like a million times more things than I'll ever know about football, but I think he's in the booth, he's talking fast, he's throwing stuff out.
He's being an entertainer. He's being an
entertainer. Yeah. He's got like 10 seconds to say something between every snap. He's got to say something. And I think, like he said something about, A&M brought, the extra pressure and whatever. And I saw the play unfold live, and I was just like, that's not a blitz. Like, they weren't bringing pressure. Like, you guys have to understand, when linebackers or edge defenders or whatever, however DJ Durkin determines their responsibilities, right? When you have backs in the backfield or tight ends or whatever, those guys have responsibility to cover them. And at the snap, when they see those guys protecting, they need to then go rush the quarterback. And the faster they recognize that, the better off we are, and the more it looks like a blitz. All right. And that happened several times and against Auburn, and RG3 called it like, rushing 5 or 6, and it really wasn't. At least not in that context. And against Miami, you saw a lot of plays where they stayed in to protect, and our linebackers were standing still 3 or 4 yards behind the line of scrimmage, covering nobody, while our outside corners were trying to play man-to-man with a single high safety and getting eaten up, right? Because there was no pressure. So, and against Auburn, the guys seem to recognize that a lot quicker and get to the quarterback, and it paid off for us. Also, don't think we're playing nearly as much like single high anymore. Yeah. I think they figured out that's not going to work. But whatever. But I just stop being obsessed with how many dudes have their hand on the ground before the snap, and where guys are standing. Like, it is not 1995 anymore. Like, and you can't sit there and look at defense and be like, well, that's a 3-4 defense and that's a 4-3 defense, and this is doing, like, it just doesn't work that way anymore. Just because two guys have their hand on the ground doesn't mean it's a 2-man front. That's just not how it works, right? Like, it's about gaps and responsibilities, and it's just not that way anymore. So whatever. You're not going to listen anyway, so because you don't.
Nobody's listening.
This one. Nobody's listening.
Nobody's listening. They don't have a stomach for it.
Thank you, listener, and thank you for your comments.
Hey, we're up to 4. There's 4, and at one point we had 5. Okay.
Oh wow! Awesome.
So things are looking up.
If you're listening, comment please, and let us know you're here.
Yeah, drop us something in there. I'll throw out a stat for you. Go back to Miami, first half of the game. Casey, how many passing plays do you think we legitimately rushed 3? How many passing plays? First half only. We rushed 3.
So many sleeps since then. I just only rushed 3. Oh, only rushed 3? Like, legitimately dropped 8 into coverage and pinned our ears back and rushed 3? God, I would say like 4.
Twice. Twice.
Well, then I'm going to say in those 2 snaps, we had 2 sacks.
We had 1. Oh, our only sack of the game. Oh. It was our only sack of the game. We got it with a 3-man front.
Yeah.
Okay. I won't tell you what happened on the other play.
Oh, okay.
Tariq Chappelle got thrown down to the ground.
Thrown to the ground? Yeah. With 2 hands. 2 hands by the shoulders, just thrown to the ground. Like, not hand, did the color guy call it hand fighting? Or is that just
hand fighting. Yeah, that's right.
God, how many times did we hear hand fighting in that game as dudes were being slung to the ground?
Yeah. Hey, and we picked up. Anyway, it doesn't really matter.
It doesn't.
But people need to be patient with this football team, man.
Yeah.
And I can't stand the narrative that we're Durkening. Man, no, Durkening was getting chewed up for 6 to 7 yards a carry last year with a bunch of freshman defensive linemen. Mm-hmm. All right. Those days
are having a very low explosive play rate.
Yes. Taking advantage of the strength of the defense, which was the secondary. All right.
Yeah.
Last year, it was the secondary. All right. And I think as time goes by this year, I think that secondary is getting stronger. Deuce Harmon, uh,
Mm. Jordan
Jacoby
Gilbert.
Matthews.
Oh no, Gilbert's out.
Gilbert's out. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, Matthews coming
Yeah.
in, playing really, really well, making good tackles, showing up, right? Being physical. Guys on the outside being physical.
Yeah.
So look, I think they're just going to get better.
Yeah. We still got to tackle
Big,
better. I mean, we haven't talked
big
about that.
test this
Tackling
week.
has been bad. Do what?
Yeah, and tackling is going to be critical this week, right? Because you got an absolute load at quarterback.
Yeah. And a guy with
that guy is going
a
to get out
ton
and
of
run.
snaps under his belt who's going to be way better at, he's going to be less likely to get fooled by those things we talked about in the RPO game, right? Like that's just how it goes. I mean, I don't know if you want to move on to Arkansas or not, but
I'm ready to talk about Arkansas.
Do what?
Yeah, let's talk about Arkansas.
Okay.
You think that? You know what? They're an interesting team this year. They've definitely been up and down. So I don't know that A&M football fans should be really fearful of this game, but they shouldn't be overly confident either. Right? Look, you're gonna have to go and grind it out. We already said that up front, right? But I was just looking through. Look, these guys did lose to BYU at home.
They did. But, to read Texags this week, I would almost think that they beat LSU,
Man, I don't know what the hell that was about. That's a game I didn't get to watch, and I sure would love to go back and watch it. But, okay, they played LSU tough at LSU all the way down to the wire.
Good on them.
Actually, I don't think this game really went down. Was this the one that went right at the end, or did Arkansas score late to clean it up? I'm trying to remember.
I think Arkansas had the ball last, only down.
It was 24. LSU was 24-16 at the end of 3, and I feel like LSU got up a decent amount, and maybe let's see if that's what happened.
Dude,
let's see.
I think Arkansas
was tied. It was tied in the fourth.
Second half. Okay.
No, they tied it twice. So yeah, they hung in there. They got back into that game. Man, that's fascinating. I should go back and watch that one.
Yeah.
Let's see what the hell happened there. Because Arkansas lost to BYU.
Mm-hmm.
And BYU is not a good football team. So
yeah.
Who the hell knows, dude? Here, check this out. They lost to BYU despite outgaining them by 150 yards.
Yeah, what was the turnover margin? I think they had some.
It had to have been pretty bad.
Yeah. And look, KJ will do that. Did it in our game last year.
No, they lost the turnover margin 2-1.
Yeah.
So it wasn't crazy.
I have seen it.
Been pretty critical.
I've heard it said or seen it typed online that they're struggling in the trenches this year, and I would very much like to believe that. But you don't lose to LSU by only like 2 points or something, being tied in the fourth corner if you're like real bad in the trenches, right? So
you would think no.
You would think. But what do we really know about LSU? And then, that goes back to what I said earlier. Like, let the season play out. I've seen a lot of Aggies saying, boy, the SEC just sucks this year. And the SEC has definitely got issues this year. They're not as good as they've been. I think that right off the top is extremely fair to say. But look, man, let's see. Let's wait a few weeks, right, before we just put a nail in the SEC's coffin. Everybody breaking in a new quarterback is struggling. Even Georgia isn't like, I still think they're the best team in the SEC and maybe even the country, but they're breaking in a new quarterback, and sometimes they don't look as good as they have in the past, And then, Tennessee, I I never really understood why everyone was so high on Tennessee. I mean, I still think we're going to be struggling to be lucky to win that game, but like Tennessee breaking in a new quarterback, had to go in, in the swamp against a team with a veteran quarterback, and look what happened to him. Like, that's just the way it goes. And so a lot of teams breaking in quarterbacks, including A&M, and I just give it a few weeks for all these teams to figure out who they are. I think by the end of the season, the SEC is going to be pretty good, and I think that will bear out in bowl season. But hey, we got a whole season to play. But yeah, I don't know.
Well, it's funny you mentioned Georgia, and you said they may be the best team. I think you said not just in the SEC but in the country.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how that could be possible because obviously Oregon is the best team in the country.
Obviously, by a wide margin. I mean, look what they just did to like probably, I don't know, the fourth or fifth best team. I don't know.
Probably. At least.
Probably.
Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely named their score.
Yeah.
So they're definitely the best team in the Pac-12, which is the best conference, obviously.
Obviously.
So, man, I think the text you sent me was, "Oh, look, Oregon doing the Lord's work."
Whoa, no. Don't put that out
there.
No.
I may have to.
Because I don't know. Apparently, that kind of sentiment carries.
Well, look. Here's the deal, man. I have to say this. I'm going to say this once. I'm highly entertained by Deion Sanders. Look, Cowboys fans. The show was here for many years,
for sure.
But the media. This is man. What we're dealing with here is so aggravating. So aggravating.
So what's more annoying? What's more annoying? The fans only paying attention to college football because of Deion, or the NFL because of Taylor Swift? Because apparently it's okay to hate those fans, but not.
That's true. That should be our next poll.
Excuse me.
That should be our next poll.
Oh my god.
At Meltdown Eggs. All of us. Thanks. Let's be honest, that's how you got here. Thank you for following us. No, I think Colorado's going to get it again this week, man, from USC. So they may not get basically shut out. They're just going to score some more points. Yeah. But I'm not Dan Lanning made his point. All right,
did.
And he's a tough guy. Guess who's not a tough guy and who needs to score a lot of points to make their point? Lincoln Riley.
Mm-hmm.
They need to put up a lot.
They do.
Because if they don't, look, winning 47-35, that ain't gonna work.
No.
It's going to need to be 70-35.
It's going to be 70-35, and it might be. It really might be. Yeah.
And then things don't get better for Colorado after that either. So they're in for a rough. They're in for a rough run, and look, that's not really fair to Colorado. This whole thing,
it's not
the way it's gone down, has not been fair to them. Now, one could argue that Deion has done everything in his power to hype and overhype his program. Okay, beyond just taking advantage of, obviously he wants to get his name out there for the players. He was all
mm-hmm.
and could have sort of managed expectations around that program too. Okay, so some of the things, what he would say after a TCU win and those sorts of things, and picking on the media. Like, now we're not all behind you because we know what's coming.
Yeah.
And this doesn't feel right. Right. So,
Yeah. And that's I think it's fair to say, most of the backlash around Colorado was initially not Dion's fault, because I think a lot of it is just, you know, the media, they're trying to tell a story all off season, right? Like they've got time to fill, and that was an easy, fun story for them to tell, and people got sick of it. And that's not really Dion's fault or any of the players in Colorado's fault. But then Dion didn't do what he should have done, which was, you know, like you said, you know, temper expectations a little bit. Dion just fed into it in a way that made people happier than they should have been to see what happened on Saturday. So, you know, whatever. But, you know, I think Dion feels like he needs to leverage his celebrity status to a certain extent in order to jumpstart things quickly. He might be right about that, but I don't actually think that's true. I think Dion's status is set, and kids understand who he, you know what I mean? Like he didn't need all of that in order to build hype, you know, recruiting in kids' homes, right? Like I think that would have been fine on its own. But
right.
I don't know. Yeah, we'll see.
Well, the problem here is that, you know, my view of it, and look, as somebody who lives here in DFW and has seen a lot over 2 decades,
right?
With prime time, it better go well, because if it doesn't, it will go very badly.
Right.
And you feel like you're watching a train wreck happen, you know, 5 minutes before it comes off the tracks.
And when it does start to go,
and it's going faster.
Faster.
Yeah.
And Dion, when it does start to go bad, Dion's just going to throw more gas on the fire. That's the thing that people don't seem to realize about Dion. Like you said, we've seen it for 20, 30 years now. Like, yeah, we'll see.
Like the humility and all those things are there, and then
and then they're not.
And then they're not. And so it can get real ugly real fast, especially when your family's attached to it, and your kids out there running around, and that's a great story until it's not.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, it's going to be interesting to watch for sure. But Oregon #1, they get my vote because they beat the only other top 5 team, you know, on the slate that weekend. So
sure.
Sure. Enough of that. And I don't know. That's all I got. I hope we lost all the listeners this week. I hope we did enough just to they never come back. Thank you guys for watching.
We're up to 6 now, so it's not working. I think that might be our biggest number of live watchers. But anyway. Yeah, no,
it works.
Are we going to Arkansas on Saturday? I guess we're not. Do you have tickets? I don't either.
I don't have any tickets. I could have some tickets, but we got things to do.
Yeah, so do I. That's a shame. You know, despite what Aggies seem to say, that's a fun game. Like we've been to it a few times, and every time it's been a fun game. You know, but yikes. Yeah, I don't know what to think about it. Like I said, I think Arkansas is going to score probably 24 minimum. And if I really had to bet, I'd say they probably score more in line with what they did against BYU and LSU, which is 30 plus, 30, 32, something like that. So we're going to have to score points to do it.
Yeah. And that's where it's hard to see us matching that.
Right.
Yeah. Certainly possible. Aggies. Okay. But you know, we've seen enough to where it's going to be an uphill climb. I actually think the defense will play a little bit better than you're predicting. So I think in the end, I might take A&M in a squeaker, like a 24-21 type game. That's what I think might happen. And again, if they stick to the running game and they remain committed to it and don't give up on it and help out Max Johnson, then a couple field goals early, maybe you're eking out a touchdown. You're keeping this game close, and Max Johnson can match KJ Jefferson tit for tat in the fourth quarter. Maybe that's what happens. So that needs to be the formula.
Yeah, I would be ecstatic with that. If we hold them to 20, 21 points, I think we win that football game.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
I do too. I think you're right. If it's a 35-31 type game, well, we would be ecstatic to get to 31.
Yeah,
we would. That's just where we are.
It is, but look, we say this every year about Auburn. Like, I don't know how, but like those dudes have horses on the front seven. Like we always have trouble with their front seven, right? So I think defensively, Arkansas is not as good as Auburn, and so we should see. Like, maybe we should expect to be able to score 30 points, but I don't know. We'll just see how it goes, and hopefully we'll be here. Hopefully, like Saturday night. I don't know. We need to try to get this going post game. I think people are, just more interested in. I don't know. It just feels better to do it that day when everything's fresh. But we shall try. Please like and subscribe if you're watching. Please subscribe. Please follow our Twitter account, Out Meltdown Ags, so you get notified when the show might happen, and so you can share it and all that cool stuff. And if you got Aggie friends that are looking for a YouTube channel, like somebody on TexAgs was earlier today, wondering why we don't have more YouTube shows that are geared towards A&M, tell them about this one. Share it somewhere if you're on a forum or whatever. So that's our spiel, man.
All right, man. Talk to you later. It's been fun.
Bye-bye.